I stand frozen in the center of the grand ballroom, my navy dress suddenly too tight across my chest. The champagne in my glass trembles like water in a cup during an earthquake. My 9-year-old son Liam clutches my free hand, his small fingers squeezing mine with increasing pressure as my sister Brielle's laughter echoes through the room's sound system. "Mom?" Liam whispers, leaning against my side. "Why is everyone looking at us?" I can't answer him. My throat has closed, trapping words inside as surely as if someone had clamped their hand over my mouth. Across the room, my mother Nancy stands beside Brielle at the head table, her perfectly coiffed silver hair catching the light from the crystal chandeliers. The smug satisfaction on her face sends a cold wave through my stomach. Brielle taps her champagne flute with a silver spoon, the crystal ringing out to silence the murmurs rippling through the reception. "Let's toast my sister," she announces, her voice amplified by the microphone she insisted on holding throughout dinner. Claire Thompson living proof that one mistake can derail your entire life. Awkward laughter ripples through the crowd. Some guests shift uncomfortably in their seats, while others lean forward, hungry for drama they hadn't expected with their wedding cake. "Mommy?" Liam tugs at my hand harder now. "Why are they being mean to us?" Before I can respond, my mother steps forward and places her hand on Brielle's shoulder. The diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist, gift to the bride this morning, catches the light and sends prisms dancing across the white tablecloth. At least she brought her situation. "Dressed properly today," Nancy adds, her lips curved in what photographers would capture as a smile, but what I recognize as contempt. My face burns. The whispers grow louder around us as 200 of Atlanta's wealthiest citizens speculate about the disgrace standing in their midst. 9 years, and nothing has changed. 3 hours earlier, I'd stood in the bridal suite, carefully arranging Brielle's cathedral-length veil while she complained about the florist's failure to procure the exact shade of blush roses she demanded. "You're lucky you never had a real wedding," she'd said, examining her reflection. "So much stress." I'd kept pinning, my fingers steady despite the barb. The ruby earrings our grandmother left me, the only inheritance I received, caught the light as I moved, their deep red a stark contrast to my sister's diamonds. "Claire, couldn't you have found something less? Discount store?" My mother had swept into the room, her critical gaze landing on my dress purchased during my lunch hour with 2 months of careful saving. I'd straightened the programs I'd hand-lettered after discovering a typo in the printed versions. "Flower Girl's torn sash." Calmed the ring bearer's nerves with a story about brave knights. Handled a dozen crises no one would ever notice or acknowledge. "Brielle, honey, the photographer wants some shots before the ceremony." Nate ushered my sister toward the door. "You look absolute perfection." "I know," Brielle had replied, then turned to me with a dismissive glance. "Make sure those programs are arranged properly this time." Now, standing amid the wreckage of my dignity, I reach for my purse on the table beside me. Time to leave. Time to protect my son from the family that views him as nothing more than evidence of my failures. "Don't you dare make a scene," my mother hisses, suddenly beside me though I hadn't seen her approach. Her fingers dig into my forearm, manicured nails leaving half-moon indentations in my skin. From the microphone, Brielle continues, her words slurring slightly from too much champagne. "I mean, we all make choices in life, right? Some of us choose successful husbands and beautiful homes. Others choose." Her gaze lands directly on Liam, who shrinks against my side. The wedding photographer moves through the crowd, his camera capturing everything: the gleeful bride, the uncomfortable guests, the single mother and her fatherless son preparing for escape. Tomorrow, these photos will be evidence of a different sort, proof of what my family really thinks of us. My spine straightens. Not this time. I place my glass on the nearest table and guide Liam toward the exit. We'll slip away quietly. No scenes, no tears, just dignity where none has been offered. "Claire." Nancy's voice carries despite her attempt at a whisper. Heads turn. The sound of a chair scraping against marble stops me mid-step. Daniel Mercer, my new brother-in-law, rises slowly from his seat at the head table. The room falls silent as every eye shifts from my retreat to his unexpected movement. He reaches for the microphone, his fingers gently removing it from Brielle's hand. His expression remains calm, but something in his eyes of quiet determination makes even my mother take a step back. "I think that's quite enough," he says, his voice filling the silent room. I stare at him, recognition flickering at the edges of my memory. Something about the way he stands, shoulders squared against disapproval. I've seen him before Brielle brought him home, before the engagement, but I can't place when or where. The moment hangs suspended, perfect in its tension as 300 people hold their breath, waiting to see what happens next. Daniel's grip on the microphone tightens, his knuckles whitening against the silver handle. The room falls so silent I can hear the ice shifting in abandoned glasses. 200 pairs of eyes dart between us like startled birds, waiting. "Many of you know me as an investment banker," Daniel says, his voice steady despite the tension crackling through the ballroom. "What you don't know is that I met Claire Thompson long before Brielle introduced us at that Christmas party last year." My breath catches. "What?" Brielle lurches forward, diamond earrings swinging wildly as she grabs for the microphone. "That's impossible. You never met her." The words slur together, champagne and panic creating a dangerous cocktail. Daniel sidesteps her reaching hands with the practiced ease of someone who's grown accustomed to managing her moods. I remember exactly when and where. His gaze finds across the room, unwavering. 9 years ago. The floor beneath me seems to tilt. 9 years ago, when Liam was just a baby. When my family had freshly disowned me. When I was working 3 jobs and volunteering at the hospital on weekends because they offered free childcare during shifts. "Mom?" Liam tugs at my sleeve. "What's happening?" Before I can answer, the ballroom fades around me as Daniel continues speaking, his words painting images so vivid I'm transported back in time. Cold, fluorescent lights buzz overhead in the antiseptic hallway of Memorial Hospital's oncology ward. My volunteer uniform pale blue with a cheap plastic name badge hangs loose on my frame. I've lost weight again. Formula costs more than groceries for myself. Remember to walk, not run, sweetheart. I remind 3-year-old Liam as he toddles ahead of me, clutching a stack of crayon drawings. Room 412 comes into view, the same room we visited every Saturday for the past month. The young woman inside Julia can't be more than 19 or 20. Her once thick auburn hair has thinned to wisps against the white pillowcase. The chemotherapy isn't working anymore. Everyone knows it, but no one says it aloud. "Miss Julie!" Liam calls out, his small feet picking up speed despite my warning. Julia turns from the window, her gaunt face transforming with a smile that erases the shadows of her illness for one brilliant moment. "There's my favorite artist." She extends a thin arm toward him. I hang back, watching as Liam carefully spreads his drawings across her blanket-bright crayon worlds, where the sun always shines and stick figure people hold hands beneath impossible purple trees. "This one's you." Liam points to a figure with orange squiggles for hair. "And this is me. We're at the beach. Mom says beaches have lots of sand, but I never been to one." "Been to one," I correct automatically, then wince at how school teacherish I sound. Julia catches my eye and winks. It's our private joke, the overworked young single mother, who can't help teaching proper grammar even while exhausted. "These are magnificent," Julia tells Liam with the complete seriousness that he responds to so well. No baby talk, no condescension. "I'm putting this one right here." She tapes a drawing of a rocket ship to her forepole. That way I can see it all night. I settle into the chair beside her bed, pulling my battered copy of poetry from my volunteer tote bag. Julia loves Robert Frost, though she's too weak to hold the book herself now. As I read, a shadow shifts in the doorway. I glance up briefly, noting a tall figure, a man watching us. Probably one of Julia's relatives, I think, before returning to the poem. Later, after Liam has fallen asleep in my lap and Julia has dozed off mid-stanza, I carefully pack our things. The container of homemade soup I brought sits on her bedside table. The nurses say she hasn't been eating, but sometimes she'll take a few spoonfuls when I bring food from home. Claire saved my sister's Tupperware containers. Daniel's voice pulls me back to the present moment, to the wedding reception frozen in surprise. She washed them and brought them back each week filled with new soup, despite working overtime to make rent, despite raising Liam alone. Murmurs ripple through the crowd. I spot my boss, Mr. Henderson, his expression shifting from confused to impressed. The Wilsons from my mother's garden club exchange glances. Brielle's sorority sisters whisper behind manicured hands. Julia lived 3 months longer than her doctors predicted. Daniel continues. In her final days, she told me those Saturday afternoons with Claire and Liam gave her something to look forward to when treatments couldn't offer hope. Nancy steps forward, her country club smile strained at the edges. Daniel, darling, this is all very touching, but perhaps we should cut the cake instead. Her fingers close around his forearm. He doesn't acknowledge her. Claire never knew Julia was my sister. I watched from the doorway week after week, never introducing myself properly because I didn't want to interrupt the only bright spots in Julia's final months. Liam's small hand finds mine again. I remember Miss Julie, he whispers. She let me use her special purple marker. Tears burn behind my eyes. I'd forgotten that detail, the expensive art marker Julia insisted Liam use for his masterpieces, when her hands became too shaky to draw herself. Daniel reaches up to his lapel, unpins his white rose boutonniere, and places it gently on the head table. The gesture carries a finality that silences even the whispers. I cannot marry into a family that treats its most courageous member this way, he announces, voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom. Brielle's perfect makeup streaks down her face in black rivulets. What are you doing? She hisses, reaching for him. Nancy lunges forward, abandoning pretense. You can't be serious. Do you know how much this wedding cost? Daniel steps back, putting distance between himself and both women. No amount of money justifies cruelty to a mother and child. A memory surfaces Daniel insisting on helping Liam build a model airplane at Thanksgiving dinner while everyone else ignored him. Daniel asking about my volunteer work at the engagement party when Brielle cut me off. Daniel watching me, always watching with that vaguely familiar expression I could never place. Now I know why. A tear slides down my cheek, but for the first time in 9 years, it's not from humiliation. Something warm and unfamiliar blooms in my chest, straightening my spine. Vindication. Champagne glasses crash to the marble floor as Daniel moves toward us through the startled crowd. Wedding guests scatter like pigeons from a park bench, their designer heels clicking against stone as they create a path between us. You're leaving me for her? Brielle's voice rises to a shriek that bounces off the crystal chandeliers. Her perfect makeup streaks down her cheeks, mascara rivers destroying the facade she spent 3 hours perfecting. My own sister? At my wedding? Mother rushes between tables, patting the shoulders of the city councilman's wife, murmuring to the hospital board chairman. Damage control in Chanel. I've seen this performance before at my high school graduation when I announced my state college scholarship instead of attending her alma mater. At Christmas dinner when I refused to pretend Liam was my nephew for the society photographer. Claire. I turned to find Mr. Harrington, my boss of 7 years, standing beside me. The same man who avoided eye contact at company functions when Mother cornered him to discuss my temporary position until I sorted out my situation. You never mentioned your volunteer work at Memorial. Something shifts in his expression, respect replacing tolerance. My wife was on that cancer floor 4 years ago. She still talks about the young mother and little boy who brought homemade soup every Tuesday. Before I can respond, Liam tugs at Daniel's sleeve. My son, who hides behind my legs when strangers approach, looks up at Daniel with clear eyes. Did my drawings really help your sister? His small voice carries in the sudden pocket of quiet surrounding us. Daniel kneels, eye level with my boy. His tuxedo worth more than 3 months of my rent crumples against the floor without a second thought. Your kindness gave her joy when nothing else could. Daniel's voice drops to a register meant only for Liam, but I catch every word. Those rocket ships you drew? She kept them taped to her ceiling so she could see them from her bed. My throat tightens. I recognized you instantly at the engagement dinner, Daniel says, rising to meet my eyes. Your hair was longer then. You wore it braided with a blue ribbon. The memory surfaces not of Daniel, but of Julia, the young woman with the same gray-blue eyes as the man standing before me now. The way she'd smile when Liam climbed onto her bed with his crayons and construction paper. How she'd asked about my classes, my dreams, when everyone else saw only my mistakes. I spent months watching how they treated you. Daniel continues, his voice steady. I kept hoping I was wrong, that perhaps they were different in private than they appeared in public. He glances toward Brielle, still wailing into my mother's shoulder. I should have said something sooner. I'm sorry. A strange calm settles over me, like the quiet after a thunderstorm. For 9 years, I've swallowed my words choked on theme in the name of family peace. The weight of those unspoken truths suddenly feels too heavy to carry another step. I turn toward my mother. 9 years. My voice doesn't shake. 9 years raising Liam while working full-time. 3 promotions. Nights spent studying for my CPA certification after he was asleep. Mornings at the hospital with patients everyone else had given up on. Nancy's eyes narrow into familiar slits of disapproval. Not once did you offer to babysit. Not once did you mention my name when your friends needed accounting help. You donated $10,000 to Brielle's honeymoon fund, but complained about contributing to Liam's school supplies. The whispers around us grow louder. Her carefully cultivated image cracks like thin ice beneath spring sun. Your shame was always misplaced. The words taste like freedom on my tongue. A movement near the entrance catches my eye. Mrs. Rivera, my 72-year-old neighbor who watches Liam after school, stands clutching her car keys. Behind her, Dr. Wilson from the oncology department offers a quiet nod. My boss steps forward. Claire's been our most requested accountant for the past 2 years, he announces, loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. The promotion we discussed last month comes with her own office, starting Monday. A distinguished couple approaches Daniel's parents, I realize with a jolt. Rather than the condemnation I expect, his mother takes my free hand. Julia told us about you, she says simply. We've been waiting to meet you properly. From across the room, Miss Peyton Liam's 3rd grade teacher raises her glass in a silent toast. I'd forgotten she'd be here. She's Daniel's second cousin. Daniel's voice breaks through my shock. Let me drive you and Liam home. Mom! Brielle lunges forward, diamond bracelet catching the light. Are you going to let this happen? She's ruining my day, again! Nancy's face hardens as she grabs my arm, nails digging into skin. This is all your fault, Claire. Always making trouble. The words should hurt. They've hurt for years. But something fundamental has shifted, like continental plates moving beneath my feet. 9 years of trying to earn scraps of approval. 9 years of protecting Liam from their disappointment, while hoping they might someday see his worth see mine. Nothing will ever change. Liam, honey, I kneel beside my son. Would you like to leave now? He nods, relief flooding his face. Can Mr. Daniel come too? Daniel offers his hand to my boy first, then extends his other to me. We walk toward the exit together, my navy dress no longer feeling too tight, my spine straightening with each step. Mrs. Rivera meets us at the door, pressing her car keys into Daniel's palm. I brought my Lincoln, more comfortable for the boy, she whispers, then adds, I always knew you deserved better, dear. Outside, the setting sun paints the sky in shades of amber and gold. Liam looks up at me, confusion giving way to a tentative hope. Does this mean we don't have to see Grandma anymore? The question pierces my heart and heals it simultaneously. I brush his hair from his forehead the same shade as mine, the same cowlick that never stays put. We'll surround ourselves with people who love us for who we are. The promise feels solid, like ground beneath my feet after years of quicksand. Daniel opens Mrs. Rivera's car door, his face softened by the golden hour light. I know a great ice cream place if you're interested. No pressure, just ice cream. Liam's face lights up, but he looks to me for permission. For the first time in 9 years, I make a choice untethered from my family's expectations. A choice based solely on what brings joy to the two people walking this path with me. Ice cream sounds perfect. A shaft of morning sunlight cuts across my modest apartment, illuminating dust motes dancing above unopened moving boxes. 2 months since the wedding, and I still haven't found the energy to fully unpack. Some wounds heal slower than others. I cradle my coffee muga gift from Daniel with courage, written in simple script, and watch the steam rise in the quiet morning. The red light on my answering machine blinks with 6 new messages. Nancy's voice from yesterday's call echoes in my memory. You're tearing this family apart, as if we'd ever truly been whole. The certified letter from their family attorney sits unopened on the counter. Emotional distress, according to the receptionist who signed for it. Beside it lies my phone displaying Brielle's latest social media post, a black and white photo captioned, "Healing from betrayal isn't linear." The Thompson family specialty inflicting pain, then claiming victimhood. My accounting certification hangs in a simple black frame on the wall, no longer hidden in a drawer. Across the room, Liam's bedroom door showcases his hospital junior volunteer certificate with a handwritten note, "Best storyteller we've ever had." Liam emerges, hair rumpled, shoulders straighter than they've been in years. His grades have improved steadily since we stopped attending family dinners, where Nancy dissected his every achievement for flaws. "Is Daniel coming today?" he asks, reaching for orange juice. "This afternoon. He's bringing materials for my business plan." I can't stop the small smile that forms. My phone chimes with a text from my boss, confirming my new office will be ready Monday at the corner suite with Claire Thompson, senior accountant, on the door. 3 major clients requested me specifically for their quarterly reviews, and next week I'm presenting at the Regional Accounting Conference on work-life balance strategies. "Mom?" Liam says, studying a permission slip from school. "Mrs. Wilson says I'm doing great in therapy. She says He squints at the note, processing family dynamics in healthy ways. Last session, he finally spoke about Grandma's rejection. "She didn't see how special you are, Mom," he'd said with 9-year-old wisdom that left the therapist blinking back tears. His homework assignment sits on the refrigerator, my hero, with my picture carefully drawn below. The doorbell rings promptly at 2. Daniel arrives carrying blueprint tubes and fabric samples. "These are for your home office," he explains as Liam examines his basketball shoes. "I found an antique desk that matches your certification frame almost exactly." He unrolls the blueprints, revealing plans for the spare room in his house transformed into a professional office space with built-in shelving and natural lighting. "For Thompson Financial Solutions," he says, "the name of my dream hanging between us. Every CEO needs a proper desk." My seed money, carefully saved from each paycheck for 9 years, could make this possible sooner than I dared hope. "The business plan is nearly finished," Daniel continues. "Your experience managing client portfolios while juggling single motherhood is exactly the unique selling point small business owners will appreciate." His patience washes over me like a balm. No ultimatums, no timelines, just steady support without demands. He speaks of Julia sometimes, late at night when Liam is asleep, how his sister faced terminal illness with grace, how watching me mother Liam reminds him of her strength. These stories help me process my own wounds, showing me another way to view family beyond the toxic model I grew up with. The doorbell rings again, jarring in our peaceful afternoon. Through the peephole, I see Brielle, mascara smudged beneath red-rimmed eyes. "It's my sister," I say softly. Daniel immediately starts gathering his papers. "Would you like me to stay in the background?" I nod, grateful for his intuition. When I open the door, Brielle stumbles slightly, as if she's been leaning against it. The diamond earrings that were my grandmother's catch the light. "Claire," she says, voice cracking, "I'm sorry, but you have to understand what you've done to the family." Even her apologies begin with accusations. "You've ruined everything," she continues, tears streaming. "Mother's been dropped from the charity board, Daddy's business partners are asking questions, and I can't show my face at the club." I stand straight, shoulders back. "I'm sorry you're hurting, Brielle, but I won't blame for consequences that came from your choices." "But we're family," she whispers, reaching for Liam. Come give Auntie a hug. My son steps back, standing tall beside me. No thank you, he says politely, his voice small but firm. From the kitchen doorway, Daniel watches silently, ready to step forward but letting us handle this moment ourselves. For the first time in my life, I don't feel outnumbered by my family. I am finally on the stronger side. I straighten the framed accounting license on my office wall, Thompson Financial Solutions, the brass nameplate on my mahogany desk catching morning light. 6 months of freedom taste sweeter than I'd imagined. Through the half-open door, I glimpse Melissa at reception, fielding calls with the practiced efficiency I hired her for last month when client overflow demanded help. My fingers brush across Liam's latest therapy drawing displayed in a simple silver frame stick, figures holding hands. Himself, me, and Daniel beneath a rainbow. Next to it sits Daniel's photograph, his quiet smile reflecting the strength I've come to lean on. The emerald ring on my right hand, his grandmother catches the light when I reach for my coffee. Not an engagement yet, but a promise neither of us takes lightly. Miss Thompson? Melissa appears at my door. There's a Pastor Williams here to see you. Says he's from Calvary Heights. Her expression remains neutral, but her eyebrow rises slightly. He's with an older woman. My stomach tightens. Calvary Heights, my mother's church for 30 years. The teacup rattles against its saucer before I steady my hand. Send them in, please. Pastor Williams enters, first silver-haired dignity in a charcoal suit, Bible clutched unnecessarily against his chest like a shield. Behind him, my mother glides in, Chanel suit impeccable as always, though the collar sits looser around her neck than 6 months ago. Deep lines bracket her mouth that makeup can't quite disguise. Claire, she says, voice warm but eyes calculating. You look healthy. Mom, Pastor Williams, please sit down. I gesture to the visitor chairs, not leather like in Dad's office, but comfortable enough to suggest success. The door opens again. Liam slips in from his after-school homework spot in the break room, immediately positioning himself beside my chair. His shoulders square beneath his school uniform, chin lifted. At 9, he stands guard like a miniature soldier. Hello, Liam, my mother says, smile tight. My goodness, you've grown. Liam nods once, not stepping forward for the hug she doesn't offer. Pastor Williams clears his throat. Claire, your mother has been attending our family reconciliation ministry. He places his Bible on his lap, opening to a marked page. The good book teaches us that family bonds are sacred. Nancy has expressed deep desire for healing between you. I poured tea from the carafe on my desk, handing cups to each visitor. That's thoughtful of you to come all this way, Pastor. May I ask what prompted this visit now? My voice remains steady, professional, the voice I use with difficult clients. My mother leans forward, pearls swinging. Family should stick together, Claire. What happened at the wedding was unfortunate. But surely we can move forward now. Her gaze flickers to Liam, then away. The holidays are coming. It would look better if... Look better? I repeat, cup paused midway to my lips. Pastor Williams intervenes. What Nancy means is that Christian forgiveness benefits everyone, and... He hesitates, glancing sideways at my mother. And? I prompt. My mother shifts, crossing her ankles. The country club membership committee is reviewing our standing after that scene. Several longtime clients have requested their files. Her voice drops. They've come to you, haven't they? Ah, there it is. We need to present a united family front again, she continues, regaining composure. Your father's business reputation. I see. I set my cup down with a gentle click. This isn't about reconciliation, it's about appearance. Liam's hand rests on my shoulder, warm and solid. I open my desk drawer and withdraw a leather-bound journal, 9 years of entries, documenting every cutting remark, every Christmas where Liam received less than his cousins, every family gathering where we were seated at the far end of the table. I kept a record. My finger traces the worn cover. Not out of bitterness, but because gaslighting was your specialty, Mom. Whenever I mentioned how you treated us, you claimed I was too sensitive or imagining things. Pastor Williams shifts uncomfortably. I'm willing to consider limited contact, I continue. But I have conditions. First, family therapy not with your pastor, but with a licensed therapist. Second, acknowledgement of specific incidents in this journal, not vague apologies. Third, respect for boundaries I set regarding Liam. My mother's face brightens. Of course, darling, whatever you need. The words come too quickly. Though therapy seems excessive, one simple forgiveness. Non-negotiable, I interrupt. Her lips thin. Fine. Though this office space is rather modest for someone with your clients, I could speak to your father about investing. No? You always did make things difficult. She sighs, glancing around. Daniel would likely propose properly if we reconciled. Men value family connections. A small laugh escapes me, surprising us both. Daniel loves me precisely because I finally love myself. He admires my boundaries, not my willingness to erase them. Pastor Williams coughs, clearly recognizing the conversation has veered far from his script. I stand, smoothing my skirt. Thank you for coming. I'll email the therapist recommendations tomorrow. My mother rises, collecting her purse. You're being stubborn, Claire. I'm being clear. I correct, walking them to the elevator with professional courtesy. Love is earned through actions, not demanded through obligation. She steps into the elevator, turning for one final volley. You're breaking your father's heart. The doors begin to close. Dad hasn't called once, I say quietly. You're here alone. Her eyes widen as the doors slide shut. Liam's small hand slips into mine as we return to my office. Was that okay, Mom? Yes, I whisper, my voice steady for perhaps the first time in 33 years. That was perfectly okay. Firelight dances across Julia's photograph as I adjust the silver frame on the mantel. Her smile, so much like Daniel's, seems to approve of the pine garland and twinkling lights adorning our first Christmas together. My fingers trace the edge of the frame, remembering the young woman whose kindness Liam and I never realized would change our lives. Mom, can we head to the hospital soon? I promised the kids we'd help them open presents before dinner. Liam slides into the living room in his new Christmas sweater, eyes bright with purpose. At 10, his volunteer badge hangs proudly beside mine, continuing the legacy that unknowingly connected us to Daniel years ago. After I check on dinner, I straighten the business award nestled between Family Photos Thompson Financial Solutions' first year exceeding projections by 40%. Beside it sits the foundation certificate. Mercer, Thompson, Healthcare Education Fund for Single Parents. Our way of turning past pain into future opportunity. The kitchen buzzes with activity. Mrs. Rivera slices the roast with practiced precision, her arthritis-curbed fingers still steady with the carving knife. In my country, the matriarch always serves the meat, she announces, swatting away Daniel's father when he offers to help. Daniel's mother arranges Liam's school essay on the refrigerator with a magnet. The title, Family is Who Loves You, Not Who Matches Your DNA, had earned him both an A and a parent-teacher conference where his teacher wept. Dad's not used to taking orders, Daniel whispers against my ear, arms wrapped around my waist. But he's never been happier about having a grandson. My boss no client Bill Henderson raises his wine glass. To the woman who made me look brilliant for promoting her. His wife nudges him. Finiand, who makes me look brilliant for hiring her firm now. Laughter ripples through our home as 14 people squeeze around our tables. Hospital volunteers, therapy group friends, neighbors' faces connected not by DNA, but by choice. Unopened Christmas cards addressed to Brielle and Nancy sit on my desk drawer. I wrote them weeks ago, not yet sent, but not forgotten, either door neither closed nor fully open. Present time, Daniel announces, kneeling before me with a small velvet box. The room falls silent. This was Julia's, he says, opening the box to reveal an emerald ring, size smaller than the one I glimpsed in photographs. She would have loved calling you her sister. His voice cracks slightly. I'd like the honor of calling you my wife. Liam pushes forward, thrusting a handmade card into my hands. Crayon letters spell out, Will you let Daniel be my dad for real? Tears not of shame or rejection, but of overwhelming joy spill down my cheeks as I nod, unable to speak as they both embrace me. Approval I never needed to earn. Later, when the plates are cleared and adoption papers for Liam to take the Mercer name sit signed on my desk, beside the half-finished manuscript, the family we choose, the doorbell rings. I've got it, I tell Daniel, who's teaching Liam his family's traditional Christmas card game. Snow swirls behind my mother as she stands on the porch, looking smaller than I remember. Gray has overtaken the carefully maintained silver of her hair. She clutches a small package wrapped in simple red paper. I was wrong, she says, no preamble, no manipulation lacing her words. I'm sorry. I stare at her, searching for the familiar calculation in her eyes, but finding only exhaustion and regret. My hand hesitates on the door, neither closing it nor opening it wider. Not yet. Just slightly ajar, like the possibility of forgiveness itself. I return to our celebration without mentioning Nancy's appearance, watching our gathered family with quiet wonder. Daniel's parents steal cards, while Mrs. Rivera teaches Liam Spanish Christmas carols. My therapy group friends argue good-naturedly about basketball with Bill. The old family album sits on the bookshelf, but beside it stands a new one already half filled with photographs of people who chose us and whom we chose in return. Sometimes the happiest endings come after the courage to walk away.